Poddin My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Poddin My Noggin. I'm your host, CK Sims, and today I think we have our first movie star on the show. Welcome to Matt Drago. Did I say it right?
You said it right. You said it right. CK, thank you so much for having me today. This is going to be a really fun conversation. I can already tell.
I think you are the first film person that I've had on the show. So have had a lot of authors. I had someone who sang, that sort of thing. So you're my first movie star, and we're gonna say movie star because we know that this is your trajectory, right? So you just did so there's a couple things actually. So I'll tell you right up front, I don't like to look too much at my guest beforehand. And the reason I do that is because I prefer organic conversations as opposed to like super planned interviews. So a little bit earlier today, I did take a little go down a rabbit hole of who Matt Drago is and what he's been up to and all of that sort of thing. And I'm really interested in a couple of different things. So we're gonna, right off the cuff, I want to talk about the fact that you do have a film that's out right now, correct? It's called Somewhere in Arkansas.
Montana.
Why did I say Arkansas?
You know what? Hey, maybe there's a sequel out there somewhere in Arkansas.
Maybe there is, right?
Maybe.
So, and I watched the trailer and it looks good. Like, it looks good. One of the things that I found really interesting is because I did take a quick peek at some of your other interviews as well. And I don't think I really realized, and you see celebrities all the time and they don't look exactly as their character. I don't think you realize like how much sort of styling goes into a character in a movie, right?
For
because
sure. Yep.
Your personal styling, right, and who you are as a natural human being is very different than that particular character and how he holds himself and his mannerisms and that sort of thing. So I was really impressed by that. So, okay. So for everybody out there, it is in theaters, and it will come to streaming as well, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. What is the movie about?
It's a story of the times, and thank you for the compliment on the work that we do as actors, right? Because there's a lot of backstory that you write into it. Brandon Smith, the writer and director of this film, really crafted a masterpiece based on two conflicting worlds. And isn't that a story that we all need to hear right now, including myself? I play Fabian Verdugo. He is a Los Angeles-based director, and film is his legacy. And he runs into John Alexander, who owns a ranch in Montana, and his ranch is his legacy. And so we have two contrasting worlds. We're not two people that would normally be seen in the same place at the same time, but we are thrust in each other's worlds. Me specifically, because I'm the outsider coming into Montana as Fabian, where we need each other. And it's a great story because, I need his ranch to shoot the last pivotal scenes in my film. And it's a legacy piece for me. And I get asked this question all the time. Filmmakers want everything to be perfect. They have, just heightened sense of exactly what has to be right in the film. And sometimes that really just comes down to where you shoot the thing, right? So this ranch is just the perfect fit for his film. And, go ahead.
Well, I didn't want to cut you off, but it seems too that you both, from the limited trailer, you both have a bit of an ego in this film.
Yeah. So that is actually what I love most about this film is that Brandon wrote us both as protagonists and antagonists of the same story. And it's rarely done. We're good people, but we are in very heightened states. Me being in that making a film is hard, and I'm up against the investors. So I'm up against the clock. I'm up against insurance because there's an actor on set that is hard to insure. And the reality is this is my legacy piece, so it has to be just right. And so I am very, very heightened. He also is. Unbeknownst to my character, when I arrive on his ranch, his ranch is on life support. He is up against the bank, and the bank is about to take everything that he's worked generations for. And again, when you have a legacy such as a ranch, you're not just fighting for your own legacy, you're fighting for the father that ran the ranch, the grandfather, maybe even the great grandfather, right? Because it's their legacy too. And so you don't want to see it fail. You want it to survive. That way you can pass it on to the next generation. So we need each other. He needs the money from my film, and I need his ranch for my location. And the two of us couldn't be more different. And playing with, my friend, he calls me his mate, which is a sign of Scottish camaraderie. We are just such great friends at this point because of the story that we've told together. And it really is, it comes down to those conversations that we had off screen to really build the dynamic of these two characters. Because to be frank, CK, at the beginning, they hate each other. They don't get each other. Yeah, I mean, it's because we're so different.
And who did he deck? Because he decked, was it you or the lead actor in the film?
The lead actor.
Okay. Because I didn't
But it
quite.
happened. But it happened on my set, and I think that's one thing that should be said. That's a great point. Is that when you are a director, everything is your responsibility. So the fact that that happened to my actor on set is my fault. It's something that
Mm.
I take blame for, because that's something that is my responsibility to protect the actors that are on my set, to protect the crew members that are on my set. And so, John, it really becomes this question and this really interesting dynamic of the fact that because my film is going to be shot on his ranch and he doesn't know me, it's going to become part of his legacy. And so that's a really interesting thing that Brandon explores in the script, is that I don't get that because I'm from a mindset which, a lot of big city people tend to be in the beginning, is that it's transactional. I've already paid him for his ranch. He should be happy with what I've paid him. We doubled the offer, so we gave him fair compensation to shoot our film there, and that should be it at the end of the day, at the beginning of our relationship. But what I understand more so, as Fabian during the process of this film, is how the film will always be part of his legacy too. And I think this script and this story does a really great job of honoring each other's legacy and finding mutual respect, because we are two different people. And we shot it on an active cattle ranch. The real life owners of the ranch, David and Sue, we became close to, but they weren't even sure if they wanted a film crew of somewhere in Montana to be on their ranch. So it became a very meta experience, but we became very fast friends with the people that owned the ranch. We would hang out with their grandkids. They would cook us breakfast, Graham and I, in the morning. And it really became just this really wholesome family, because we knew pretty early on we were telling a story that was bigger than all of us. And I think everybody in it took such responsibility of that. And I'll tell you one story that resonated with me, and hopefully it'll resonate with your listeners. And I think it is that story of the times that we're telling. There's a picture on my Instagram, and it's one of my favorite behind the scenes pictures of probably all time, because I think there's really such dynamic power in it. And it's a picture just of four people. It's of Brandon Smith, the writer director, and my friend, and me playing the director in his film, and Graham playing the Montana rancher, and David, the owner of the actual Montana ranch that we shot in Polson, Montana. And it's just the four of us right in front of that cattle ranch. And that day resonated with me, really not even so much as an actor, but as a human being, where I asked David a simple question. Again, he does something that I know that I couldn't do, running an active cattle ranch. And I eat steak, right? I eat meat. So it's something that, again, we need each other for, because he makes a sacrifice day in and day out to feed people, right? And so it's something that is very vital to our society and to people at large. So I asked him a simple question. And again, I have to preface this by saying that people on these ranches, they're very succinct with their conversations. The opposite of what I'm doing right now, right? It's very succinct conversations, and it's like dinner at 7. Yeah, 23 today. Yeah, all right, I'll see you then. You know what I mean? It's very that, right? So I looked at David, and again, very internal, subtle, beautiful man, and I looked at him and I said, and he knew what I meant when I said this. I said, David, how do you do this? Right? And he's probably never had a question thrust on him like that, but he knew exactly what I was saying when I asked him that. It was the first time and the only time I ever saw him get emotional. And he looked up at the sun in that moment and he said, "Oh, it's still hard."
Hmm.
And it was just a moment that resonated with me. And it's something that I went back to my hotel that night and I wrote this post, and I'll share it with you as well. Is that I realized in that moment that there's more that can connect us than could ever divide us. In short, we need each other. And we forget that sometimes. We forget that because we feel in our modern day society, we're always on our phones, we're always on social media, we're always looking at the news. I try not to. But you really create this dynamic where you forget how to see people. And when you forget how to see people, you forget how to find common ground with them. And when you start to find common ground with people, it really just becomes this meaningful story of the times where you get to know people, you get to meet their families, you get to know them as human beings, and then you realize something really magical. You don't have to agree on everything. And frankly, you never will. So, even though we are two different people from two different worlds, Graham and I have this 10-page scene together that is just a conversation like we're having right now, CK. And it's this powerful dialogue because we go to all the hotspot, topics. We go to religion, we go to gender, we go to sexuality, we go to politics. We talk about all the tough things that you would talk about between two men, right? But we do it so respectfully because we start to let each other in. We experience something very beautiful together. I don't want to give the film away, but it is this beautiful scene in the film, and it connects us. And so we really do like that moment to me resonated as Matt, but it was also part of this really meta experience within the film where I felt like all of this positive energy and love that I was being given by being part of a film that showcased a really tight knit, town in Polson, Montana. And so many people came up to me and they were like, it was so meaningful to have a story told about us for a change. Because we have our stories about LA and New York and stuff like that. And I took that to heart because, again, this is the first character, and I truly say this meaningfully, that I fell in love with. Fabian, I fell in love with. I still love him. And because of that, I took him to heart and I said, okay, this is a real gap in our society that maybe we should lean in on a little bit. Okay. So now I have a production company and I'm producing my own stories, in my production company. And it's going to be that same thing that Fabian did, is bringing stories to little pockets of the country, because I feel like people need to see it. They need to see people having these conversations. And then hopefully this will become a trend and hopefully it'll get us back on a path together. Because again, the United States, we're an experiment. We're a bunch of societies and cultures from many different parts of the world. And if stories like this are being told, I feel like maybe we can start to see each other again and get back to a closer sense of normality and a closer sense of brother and sisterhood that can really move us, towards a brighter future.
Yes, that would be an ideal state, I think, to return to, and maybe not even return, because I don't know if there is a going back, but perhaps a new way forward that's more conducive with people connecting with each other, understanding the nuances of everybody's different lives. And that, when you were talking, that's what I was thinking about was we often take a lot at face value, right? And we never pause. We rarely pause. I won't say never. We rarely pause to look beyond what we see or what we think or what's just there to say, okay, for instance, you're stressed out in this film because you have the investors on your back, right? The insurance, because this particular actor is not very easily insured. One of your actors got punched in the face. Like there's all of these things. So when we think about movies, I think that there's an idea that, well, there's just all this money and making movies is just fun, but it's not, because making anything is
Is
a
work.
very layered process, and it's an entire ecosystem of talent and individuals and humans that go into pulling the whole thing off to this 90-minute to, well, sometimes 3 hour sort of production that we get to sit back either in a theater or in our homes and watch one time, multiple times, whatever that may be. But and we're entertained. We're entertained for 90 minutes, but it didn't take 90 minutes to make that film. It often took years, right? From conception to post-production to final release. So yeah, it's just sort of like being more cognizant of what it is, the different nuances, the different layers in everything that we do. And I I like your line of thinking about the coming together, being more connected in ways than we are different, if you will.
Yeah.
And I feel that very much because we're in a very divisive society right now. We're in divisive times right now. I do believe, however, that despite it, we're all going to come out better on the other end.
Hmm.
Might get a little ugly before we get there,
Sure.
right? But I do think in the end, we'll come out a stronger society, more united than we were before, right?
Right.
Sometimes we need these drastic things to happen to make us realize and appreciate the stuff that we had before, if
Yeah.
that makes sense, without getting too political. So that's somewhere in Montana. What was your draw initially, like for people at home? So you're a movie star. You live in LA and North Virginia. And how does this movie come into
That's a great
your
question, CK. Yeah,
hey,
it's a great question. This one really found me, and that's another reason why I'm so grateful for it. I've always been just a person in life that feels like, you know, giving is the way. Giving is the way to, um, I don't know, just live, right? Without expectations. Uh, I worked in a steak restaurant, ironically, in Valencia, California, and I had a friend there that worked with me, and she was moving from Montana with her family, and they were working hard to provide for their two kids. Now they have three, um, and she needed an agent, and I had an agent at the time, and I said, get in touch with my agent, and she signed with my agent. And I think she's actually still with that agent, which is fantastic, fabulous. She moved back to Montana. Her and her husband Kyle, Kyle and Suzu Weingart, moved back with their three kids now, and they started their own production company. They love making films. They're so talented. They have another film right now, Cuisine de l'Apocalypse, that I was on set for just a month and a half after, with the same producers, a lot of the same people on the crew. So Montana really is a family place to make a film, which is really special for me. I love that. You just develop these relationships, and it's all about relationships in life. A few years ago, she called me, and it was totally out of the blue. And she said, "Hey, Matt, I just came across a script that my friend Brandon wrote. And every time I see one of the lead characters, I see your face. Every time I read the lead character, I see your face. It's just humbling. Right off the bat, I'm tearing up even thinking about it now, because it really was. It was special. And the first thing that I said, how do I put myself out for it? How do I put myself on tape? So she sent me all the information on it, and I went to my acting teacher in Sherman Oaks and workshopped it, and thought about the different ways I could bring myself to this character. And we shot the audition once, and that's rare because now you can shoot a scene 20 different times and pick the 16th take, and that's the one that you edit and send on and all that stuff. We only shot it once, and it was just because my teacher basically just kind of made this face after I shot the scene. He just like, I was like, what does that mean? He was like, you have such a clear take on this character that I wouldn't ask you to do it again, because if you do it again, you're just gonna get in your head. Like you know what you want to do with this character. And I could tell this character like hits home for you. And even unbeknownst to him at that point, I had read the script 3 times. I just really fell in love with it. I fell in love with the messaging of it. You have to remember, a lot of actors get into this for the love of telling stories, and I
Mm-hmm.
really mean that. Most actors, like I always say, the dream is to be a working actor, not to be a movie star, to be someone that really just, lays down a couple good stories on while you're on this planet, while you're in this life. And that's always been me. That's always been how I looked at it, is telling a couple good stories. So, the toughest part comes after the audition. You let it go, you see what happens. And then a month went by, and I heard from the local casting director, my friend Jared Brocksterman, and he set up a producer session with Eden Matson, the producer, and Brandon Smith, the writer director. And I just remember that producer session being on a Zoom just like this for about 45 minutes. I think we might have only run the scene once, maybe twice. And it was just this conversation. I found myself so curious about the project, honestly, asking a lot of questions, being just really fascinated with the story, how he came to write it, why he wrote it. This 10-page scene, it's a monster scene. Again, very rare that 2 characters are in a 10-page scene in a film. But I just fell in love, really, right off the bat. And so it really became a conversation. And again, run the scene once, and then just let it go again. And a month went by, and I got a call out of the blue from Jared, and he told me that they'd gotten just thousands of submissions. I think he said like 5, 10,000 submissions for it, and there were only a few people that they called back, and that I had, and I like to say it this way, I had been granted the role of Fabian Verdugo. And it meant the world to me in that moment. But I remember even hanging up that phone, and my initial reaction to everything was, okay, Matt, now it's time to get to work, because that's when the work begins. That's when you really have to earn it. I'm a big football fan, and I always say, like, draft day is such an elation. You're celebrating with your family and your loved ones. But I kid you not, once they show up in training camp, it's time to get to work. And then you have to earn the spot. You're not just given a career because you got drafted or because you got the role. Now you have to go do the work. And I love the work of being an actor, CK. Like, honestly, it's just some of the best work. I'll speak to my process a little bit, because I studied with the great Terry Schreiber in New York City, and he's just like a grandfather to me. I just love him so much. But what I love about him is he loves actors. He's gotten people like Edward Norton his start, and he's really just a lover and a fighter of actors. And what's great about him is he's studied so many different types of acting methods, whether it be Stanislavski, Strasberg, Meisner. I've done kabuki training, which is Japanese body work. I'm a martial artist, so I really gravitated towards that and finding the behavior. And like even you said when you're watching the trailer, like the movement of the character as you see me as Matt right now, I'm a lot more chill than
Yeah.
Fabian. Fabian is a different person, so I inhabit him by finding the body work, and method acting in all the ways that it's not known is a really beautiful art form. Because, for instance, I lost 25 pounds for this role. I like lifting weights. I like drinking my protein shakes, but Fabian is not that. Fabian is somebody that forgets meals. He's somebody that's hyper driven, and he is somebody that cares more about everybody else than he cares for himself. And I really wanted to make that clear. He's not a diva. He's somebody that's passionate. And the two are sometimes confused, I think. But he loves his people. He loves his actors. He loves his crew. These are people that are his family, and he will fight with them and for them. And so because of that, he doesn't always take care of himself. So I did it healthily. I got my friend Nathan Reed, who is a great actor friend of mine. He connected me with two wonderful nutritionalists, and it was kitchen and cardio. It was 5 small meals a day. It was a lot of cardio work, and I burned through a lot of fat and muscle, and I did it in a really healthy place. I was eating really healthy, nutritious meals, and that made it so that when I showed up to set, I really felt like I was in the instrument of Fabian Verdugo. And those are the great parts of method acting.
Before we take a break, so you got the part, and how long was it from when you got the part to when you were to start filming?
Well, the film actually got pushed back a year. So I had essentially almost a year and a half to live with this character, which is an extraordinarily long time. And for me, because I think I am a little bit obsessive when I really love a character, it felt like sometimes too long, because at a certain point, I really just felt like I was ready to give that character away. But if you want to take a break, personally, I was glad that it was pushed back a year, because something really devastating and personal happened in my life. So if you want to take a break, we can start there when we come back.
Absolutely. We'll be right back, everybody.
Partner today with CK Sims and Poddin My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we have been talking to movie star, I'm going to keep saying it, Matt Drago. And I understand that, that's not the real dream, right? It's to make and tell great stories.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
you could be an A-lister making lots of money and do that as well. So this is what I anticipate for you, and I see you
Thank you.
doing.
Thank you.
Before the break, we talked a lot about this particular film, Somewhere in Montana. I got it right this time, sorry. And a lot of the different processes leading up to it. And you had said you were sitting with the knowledge of having this part before filming, because it got pushed back by a year. And during that time, you went through something that was rather difficult. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. I talk about it because of Terry Schreiber. I went to a talk back in New York City once, and it really resonated with me. Little did I know that a decade later it was going to happen to me. But he talked with his friend Alfred Molina, who is an actor's actor, just a really special person. I got to meet him and talk with him, and that's always really that resonates a lot with younger actors, when you get to have those like behind the screen kind of talks, and you get to know somebody. He had just lost a parent, and he was in a movie where he found himself feeling guilty that he was utilizing the loss of a parent within this role. It felt wrong to him in many ways, and this is a testament to Terry Schreiber, because without a second, without a beat, he said, "No, you were paying honor to him. You're an artist. This is what we do. We feel everything. We feel the pain. We feel the joy. We feel the excitement. Whatever it is we're feeling, we take it in, and we do the best that we can to express it. That way other people can feel it too and be moved by it, right? Because that's what good stories do. They move people." So it's just a really extraordinary talk back, and something that 10 years later I experienced, because 2 days before I was supposed to go to set for Somewhere in Montana, I lost my stepfather. And I say stepfather, but he really was a father figure to me growing up, and somebody that really taught me the love of acting, because he was a chef and he loved food. And the way that he loved food really taught me how to love acting, because
Mm.
food was for everybody. And I feel like stories are for everybody, right? You give them away. And I just remember the conversations that I've had with him over the years and really reflecting on that. And it just really became a really big motivating factor for my character, because I was like, okay, how can I use this? And I do think that Fabian is longing for, you know, validation and a father figure in his life. And John, in a way, becomes that to him because he is an older character. He's been through more life. And when he starts to let Fabian into his journey, the two of them connect. But I think he connects with John a little bit more because of that lack of a father figure. Fabian has a nervous tick. He rolls an Irish penny, and it was his grandfather's. And so, I think he's always connected to that, like, familial connection. And the way that I wrote it is that maybe because again, we only have so much to play off of in our backstories, because I love to develop backstories as an actor. It's something that really instigates a lot of behavioral elements for me, so that I don't have to worry about the words or the lines. I can really just kind of create this massive foundation that I can work off of. That way, when I'm in the moment with someone like Graham or Michelle or all these great actors in this film, all I have to do is really just play off of what they're giving me. And specific to Graham, he's so subtle, he's so nuanced as an actor, that it really just gave us a really uh, just, I think, powerful dynamic, because I gave myself the freedom to be big with Fabian because I felt him big. I felt him honestly, but I felt him big. And so, with the loss of Papa Chaz, my stepfather, I utilized that familial relationship and that kind of father son bond. And I know that we're not like a father son in this scene, but there are elements to it where I'm looking for validation, and maybe he is too, right? Because not necessarily being an older person means that you understand everything. I think we're really learning from each other, but there is a little bit of that dynamic. There's also this beautiful scene, and I will bring it up because I kind of teased it before. But my friend Andrew Roa, who comes from Native American roots, there's a scene in the movie that is just extraordinary. And it's called a ceremony in many Native American cultures, where you grieve a person for a year and you grieve hard. And how ironic is that? That is written into the script. And I grieved hard for Chaz for a year. I felt like, it was a gift that the film got pushed back, because I don't know if I would have been at my best if I had to roll into set and miss, his celebration of life, and not be there for him to celebrate him. I think I was just really just a wreck of myself, and maybe I wouldn't have been able to do my job. And my job is acting, and I take it very, very, passionately, as you can tell. And so, like, that gift for me was a moment of, okay, now I have a year. And just like in this film, I'm going to grieve, and I'm going to grieve hard, because I think we need to do that sometimes in our lives, is just to give ourselves the ability to let it come when it needs to. And I get a little teary eyed, but, like, believe me, I was a full on wreck. And thank God for my little dog, Buffy, right? And, like, my wife, who's just supported me, and she was really, really close to him as well. Where in this scene, it really does go back to that Native American ceremony, which it was all so beautiful for us because we've all lost people. And my friend Andrew Roa, even before the scene, this is kind of a testament to Brandon Smith and the ecosystem that he created with us being able to bring ourselves to the film, is that Andrew started to do this Native American chant. And I swear, CK, everybody in the room was just emotional before we were even rolling the camera. And then Brandon did something that we weren't even really fully aware of. He was rolling the camera, and he captured some of it, and he put it in the film, because it is a testament to celebrating life and celebrating the legacy and the tribute that we have. Because I've always been someone that really I don't gravitate towards funerals. I gravitate towards celebrating people's lives and celebrations of life. I just went to one of my dear friend Adam and Candace's celebration of life with their daughters Ava and Gia, and it was so extraordinary. And I think it's the right way to celebrate people is to celebrate their life, not mourn their death. Right? It's more powerful to me because that's the legacy, and people live on through us. So for me and Chaz, you'll see in that ceremony scene um, that I'm wearing a pendant, and it's a Tree of Life pendant, and it has Chaz's ashes in it. So I wore him, my Papa Chaz, close to my heart in that scene and in that pivotal 10-page scene with Graham. And that all kind of aligned with this story that we were telling. And again, I thank God for the opportunity to be in this film, to be around so many talented collaborators, to be around this crew, because I can't say enough about everybody. We were a unit, we were a family. The crew was so just like we were all sobbing um, behind the camera, in front of the camera. We were all having this emotional connection, and you could feel it in the air. And isn't that what good art is to use what you have? And sometimes it's just what you have in that moment. I was grieving, you know. Andrew was utilizing his ancestors, and everybody like had their own stories that I'll let them tell, but you could feel that everybody was bringing their stories to this really emotionally charged scene. And so again, it goes back to that conversation I had in that little black box theater with Terry Schreiber and Alfred Molina, where it was just this moment of you're an artist, and what do good artists do? They use what they have. And I learned in that moment that I had Papa Chaz with me, and I was gonna use him, and I was gonna honor him, and I was gonna celebrate him the best that I knew how, and that was by being an actor.
I love that. So let's take a slight shift in conversation. Let's go back to Northern Virginia when Matt was just a wee one. And when did you first sort of gravitate towards the idea of being an actor? Like what was the, I guess, defining moment for you?
I got to be honest, CK, since the moment I arrived on the planet, I knew that I just loved imagining, creating stories in my own head. I was one of those kids with humble beginnings that really just needed the outdoors, my
Mhm.
friends, creating little scenarios. Ironically, the woman I married did the exact same thing. We met in that studio, believe it or not, in Terry Schreiber's studio, only to find out that we grew up 3 blocks away from each other in a small Virginia town. So, it's called Life's Pull, and I felt like from the very beginning that this was my calling. This is how I felt like I could, do my best by the world, and it really always came down to telling good stories. But then that process evolves, right? Because as a child, you're free from financial restraints. You're primarily taken care of by your parents, by your family. And moving forward, to my teenage years, I actually, my first paying gig was in dinner theater in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And this is a really key moment in my life because I knew I always wanted to be an actor, and I grew up doing, local theater and community theater. And I tell people all the time, like, while you're a kid, get involved in community theater. There's nothing better. It's like basically don't have to necessarily have a job at that point in your life. Like, you have nothing but time. You don't necessarily have to get paid. The payment is the experience, and the journey is the destination in that moment and through and through. But doing dinner theater, getting my first paid gig, and being on stage, and then getting off stage, and clearing plates, and refreshing drinks, really taught me that the dream was going to be work. And I think that was a good lesson to learn really early on. is that, part of being a dreamer is being a fighter. And I always say this, but don't sleep on dreamers. We're fighters. We will fight through and through
Yeah.
to make sure that our dreams are realized. And that's what I love about dreamers. And that's what I love about LA, is that I'm surrounded by them, and they're fighters, right? When I moved to LA, quick aside, I was the top TaskRabbit. I don't know if you know what TaskRabbit is. I was the top TaskRabbit in all of LA, doing odds and ends jobs, cleaning people's houses, digging holes in their backyard to plant trees, organizing their closets, painting their bookshelves, whatever it took. And
Was
that's
it
how I
like an
survived.
app?
What's that?
It's like an app?
It's an app. Yeah, yeah, it's an app.
Well,
And I was,
like an Uber for indie people.
exactly, exactly, just to
Oh,
help people,
okay.
and to make side gigs, but to keep your schedule open, because you can take the jobs as you want to. So because I didn't have a job moving out here, with my girlfriend, now my wife, Laura, is that she found this app, and it was just part of that fight, right? It's like, okay, I don't have a job. How can we figure out how to pay rent? Because we're gonna there's no plan B here. We're going to figure it out. We're going to keep figuring it out. And she got that because she's also an artist. So,
I can
it
imagine
really,
that LA is not that affordable either.
it's not, it's not. But again, it goes back to being that dreamer, and, knowing early on that I had to work for it. The reward is, in this moment, that I came off stage at Riverside Dinner Theater. I'm probably, I don't know, CK, like 14, 15 years old. So I come off stage this one night, and I'm playing Little Patrick and Mame. And this woman comes up to me. She's probably in her 70s. And, I think I was even serving her table, but she wanted to come because, and tell me just a really beautiful nugget. And this is really what made the impact for me moving towards the professional arc of my career. Was she said, Matt, like, the way that you portrayed little Patrick and Mame tonight, because it's a very mother son centric film, played by Lucille Ball, and obviously a great stage show as well. She said, I learned from the way that you portrayed little Patrick tonight, that I need to make a much bigger effort to be closer to my son. And the way that she said it, it was just like, whoa. And I was a 14, 15-year-old, but I got to be honest, I was already like emotional. I'm a Cancer. I'm an empath. Like I felt it big because of the way she said it. It really impacted me, and it was such a currency to me because it was more than the dollars in my bank account. I'm like, oh, that's why we do this. That's why we tell
Um,
stories. And
I,
so that really did teach me to work for it, but to find those little nuggets in people that appreciated your work, because that's the fuel that keeps the dream alive.
well, I think that that's the impact of storytelling in any form, really, is that people's perception and what they can take away from it
100%.
is the art, essentially, right? So, and I think going back to the dreamer part, I feel like if you're a dreamer, you have to have grit, right?
Yes,
If
100%.
you want your dream to come true one day, you have to have some grit to make that happen. And it isn't easy. I think if you meet some of the most successful actors in the world, and if we're defining success by, say, you know, A-list and Oscars and all that stuff, even if we're not, they're going to tell you that it wasn't always the red carpets and the glitz and glamour and all of that sort of thing. There was a lot of grit and a lot of persistence in getting to where they are now. And people think, oh, overnight success, they got discovered and they did a movie and everything was like that. But rarely do they think about how many years that they've committed to the craft of acting or whatever it is they're doing, writing, singing, all of those things. Um, so you moved to LA, TaskRabbit
TaskRabbit.
was
Can I just say
okay.
something about what you just said? Because it was so insightful, and I just wanted to follow up on it. Is that I feel like a lot of actors specifically, are at a disadvantage in many ways because it is so outward facing, right? It's like we're having a real conversation right now, CK, right? Like we're connecting. I'm getting to know you as people, right? Forget about me and movies or whatever. Like we're connecting just person to person right now. Um, the reality is that because it's so outward facing and because people see the red carpets and the awards, they don't realize really what it takes to get there. And honestly, even if you book a big gig, sometimes like you're still having to work for it. You're still having to get the next gig. You're still having to bet on yourself, and sometimes that takes extra money. Like I'm hiring a PR team right now, that takes money, right? So there's a lot of things that look better, I always say, on social media than they might actually be in real life, right? And so in understanding that, yes, I mean, I'm proud that I was the top task rabbit in LA. And now that I did that to keep my dream alive, I get to be in this beautiful story and somewhere in Montana telling a great film. But if I wasn't willing to do that, I wouldn't be able to get here, And so I do feel like people need to give actors, and really anybody, grace sometimes because it's no different in any job vocation. It's like we like to demonstrate our wins outwardly, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and they're long days a lot of times. And I will say, specific to film, you put so much pressure on yourself sometimes, especially with a big film such as this, where you've done so much work and then you have one day to give it away. And that's what lives on forever. So there's innate pressure in that. And, it takes skill. It takes collaboration. I think I realized from this project specifically that I don't just love acting, which is my first love in life. I really love collaborating. I love being around my people. And that is the dream in and of itself. So the dream really comes to, can I do this and keep doing it, whether it's hiring a PR company or the team around you, my agents, my managers that, want me to stay in my lane creatively. That way they can do the business side of it for me. It's building the people around you where we can all be great and achieve together. So I really do wholesomely look at this as like a team sport because you really are the sum of the parts that are around you. And I always tell people, like, give actors a little bit of grace because I know outward facing, there's a lot of awards, there's a lot of red carpets, but if you talk to most actors, which I have because I'm a student of the game, first and foremost, they love telling great stories that make an impact. That's why they got into it, and they will keep working towards that. Whether they book a job and they still need to take another job, whatever it takes to keep the dream alive is why they got into it in the first place.
Well, I think a common misconception is that if you get hired into a film in LA or whatever, that you're walking away making bank. That's not accurate, right? For the majority of actors that are out there trying to get enough hours and enough time, enough money to get their insurance from their SAG cards, the grind, being a working actor, as you mentioned before. The reality is, for most of the actors, they don't have what we see on the red carpet. Like that's a very small percentage. They're not booking $5 and $10 million jobs,
Right. Exactly.
right? But we still watch those movies and we still watch those television programs. They're still out there grinding day in, day out to try and find their next gig, learn the lines, embody whatever character that they've got, give their best, and hope that can help them book more work. So I think when you say grace, absolutely, because we can't judge the whole
Mm-hmm.
through the lens of a few, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the whole situation. They're a community of really hardworking people who are dedicated to delivering a craft.
Yeah.
Um, And it's not always about the glitz and glam or the Oscars or whatever the situation may be. That said, though, I do have this gut feeling in my tummy about you, Matt, which my tummy is actually rarely wrong. So I feel like within the next like 3 to 5 years, we're going to see you in a big way somewhere in film. And I don't know what that's going to be, but I feel like you're going to get your flowers, you're going to get your accolades, all of that sort of thing. And I'm going to be like still sitting here on my podcast and like, I interviewed that guy and I had a feeling about him. I think what it is I know that I don't know anything about the industry, to be honest with you. Like, I know that it can be ugly, right? There's that component of it too. I know that there's a lot of bureaucracy and whatever, that sort of situation. But I know people, right? And so you're an extraordinarily passionate human being, right? You're people centric. And there was something that you said in the form that you filled out, because everybody fills out a form that comes on the podcast. What is your messaging to others? So this one was really I I enjoyed. So stay true to yourself and always be a person that seeks to bring people together, not divide them apart. And what I love about that is it speaks to your character, right? So I think because of who you are and what your beliefs and core values are, if that's going to take you places, you're going to end up where exactly you want to be. Now, whether, I don't know, to be fair with you, if the movie might have been something you and your wife does yourself. We don't know what that's going to be, but I just have this gut feeling that your journey in the next 3 to 5 years is going to be pretty epic. Um, yeah, I don't know why, but this is what I feel. And then
Thank you so much
the
for
other,
that. I mean, that was really beautiful. Again, this is why I'm so grateful interviewing with people like you, because these conversations are I don't know how else to say it, but they're a part of my journey. Like, they're very meaningful conversations, and especially when I have such an emotionally rich conversation with somebody like you, CK, it really is. It's something that I utilize to keep myself going, right? So yeah, keep rubbing your tummy for me, and
yes, well, yeah, the tummy doesn't lie. I've given a lot to this tummy. It doesn't lie. I'm usually very accurate with what my tummy tells me.
means a lot. I
So
appreciate it.
when you're there then and I'm still here, then you'll come back when you create new projects and have
Absolutely.
conversations.
I would love to be back on your show. Of course.
And it's interesting, as you said, it was really cool because we were talking about the dreamers and the dreamers and the grit, but a dreamer, it takes work.
Yeah.
And my dream is to have this show, right? And to grow this show into something that I can be truly proud of. I'm already there, absolutely. But scalability wise, I have this dream where I have a studio audience.
Cool. I love
I
that.
do. But I don't know if my dream exists in the television network arena or if it remains a web-based show with a studio audience. Because with television like networks, you got a lot of sort of compliance and that sort of thing. Well, whereas this show is like, we can talk about whatever and we can swear, which there's great value in dropping a swear word every now and then.
Agree.
So I don't know, but that's my dream. But as you said, I'm not a task rabbit. I totally have to Google this because in my brain it sounds dirty. Just as an FYI,
Yeah.
that's why when you
It's
said it first,
it's
I was
it's an
like,
odd phrase, but yeah, it's like you're tasking around, you're hopping from job to job to job. But yeah, I could see a scenario where we could go another direction with that for
yeah, my
sure.
brain went the other direction, which I think also suits me normally because like
Yeah.
my brain's
I,
just a
I
little.
promise it's not anything bad. It's definitely
No,
it's chores.
I believe you. Yeah. So, and I think, yeah, I just, I totally lost my train of thought. This happens every now and then too.
No, but you know what? I was gonna say, like, when you do get your studio on an audience, and I'll rub my tummy for you too. I'll be your first guest if you want me to be. When you get
There
that
you go.
studio audience, I would love to. That would be a pretty cool full circle moment as we talk about it right now. I'll come out
Absolutely.
and where are you, by the way?
I'm in Canada. I'm in Montreal, Quebec.
Cool. Well, I've never been to Montreal, so there you go.
It's beautiful here.
Yeah, I've heard.
I love Quebec. Um, well, oh my God, it came back and then it slipped away again. Work, yes. So like what's interesting about it, because the task rabbit thing is that, I have my day job and very taxing day job. And I love the work that I do because I am a consultant. So we do management consultant, leadership coaching, that sort of thing, change management. Um, and so that's very taxing. But the dream is to have a show. And that dream started when with Oprah. I grew up on Oprah and I
Mm,
love that woman. I've never met her,
me
but I
too.
love her.
Yeah,
Just everything she's done. I know that it's a polarized topic. Doesn't matter to me. For me, I grew up with her.
she's brilliant.
Um, and so I'm not Oprah, I'm CK, and I don't aspire to be Oprah, but I want to create something within a similar arena, if that makes sense. But it has to be uniquely me. It can't be anybody else because I don't want to be somebody else. That would be tiring. Anyway, all right. So we've got Somewhere in Montana. It's in theaters now. It's going to come to streaming. You are working on projects now. You're a production company that you have with your wife.
Mhm.
You guys are co-owners. I know I have the memory in my brain, but it's just gone. Oh, I just
Dragon Hunter
know.
Productions.
Yes, and that makes sense because her last name is Hunter
Yep,
Drago.
Drago and
Um,
Hunter.
so you guys are doing stuff. You have a podcast as well.
A couple podcasts. I give her full credit for those. She scripted them. She produced them under the bridge of our production company. It was a great way to get her writing out there. Last year, she won Austin Film Festival's Best Podcast Script, and so that was a starting point. Um, she's so brilliant. I can't obviously say enough great things about her, but what specifically with this was she had already produced the podcast, hired actors, which was gratifying for us to get to hire actors for a change, right? And when she won the podcast, she dropped it the next day so everybody could start listening to it, which I thought was so brilliant because, again, podcasts are a great way to digest what you could do with we'll say like a bigger budget, right? And so
Mhm.
because she had just won this incredible, it's the bronze typewriter, it's such a cool statue over there, and it's heavy too. But it's this really really cool because Austin Film Fest is a writers medium film festival. It's actually one of the most coveted writers mediums you can get. And again, being a student of the game, she had gone the year before and she had talked to some people, and one of the girls said to her, she said, writing is writing, and people are always writing features. A lot of them are always writing shorts. You should come back in here next year and write a podcast. And so she did. She listened to that advice, and then she won. And then she'd already produced the podcast script, and now she's one of the fellows, the 5 fellows that got into Film Independent. Which has started some incredible careers. Most notably, recently, is John Chu was a film independent alum, and it's just she's going to have a short film that's fully budgeted this year, and she's worked for it like I've worked for it, and there is nothing better than collaborating with somebody that you love. I mean, honestly, it's so gratifying because we've been through all of the lows together. We've gone through all the odds and ends jobs to keep the careers going. And now, much in the vein, it's like when you think about alignment in your own life, right? And as we've talked about today on your show, is that, Fabian has rubbed off on me in such a big way that I feel like our next journey is to fully budget a feature film from that little small town that we're both from in Front Royal, Virginia, to give a voice to our little corner of the world and to bring our full circle of the people that we know so we can make something that we can all be proud of together.
Love that. So when this is ready to be for release, you have to come back and
100%.
talk about it.
Absolutely.
And both of you can come back and talk about it.
Yeah, that would be great.
But so yeah, that's what my tummy says. Tummy's rarely wrong. And it is a true fact. My tummy is very rarely wrong. Okay, so that's what you're up to next. If people want to follow you, they can head on over to Matt Drago. That's it, at Instagram. And then you also have a website, which, give me 2 seconds, mattdrago.com. So pretty chill, people, like not hard to remember here. And then you can also Google dragonhunters.com.
dragonhunterproductions.com. So I make it easy. You go to Instagram, give me a follow there. I have a link tree there set up. So it's got my actor website, mattdrago.com, Dragon Hunter Productions. If you want to check out my IMDb, past and future projects. And then again, because life is a journey.
And we're in Montana trailers there as well, just as
it is.
FYI.
Yeah, and I'll do updates as when it comes to streaming and things like that. But as being an artist is a journey, right? I like to, share personal things and professional things that are happening with my life. So yeah, give me a follow there and you'll be in all the know that's happening in my life and my career.
All right, everybody, go over and follow Matt Drago. Keep an eye out for all of the cool things that he's going to be doing next. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I look forward to also looking out to what you're going to be doing next. To everybody else, until next time, get out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.